guys, it's Christina from Blossom and Root. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all of our curriculum choices for my oldest daughter who will be going into the second grade at the end of the summer. So these are all the pieces I've put together for her year ahead, for her second grade year. And let's just get started. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in with language arts first. We're going to be using Blossom and Root, second grade, and the language arts program for that year is called Fantastic Journeys and Perilous Quests. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up so you guys can kind of get a look at what the parent guide looks like. I'm just going to open to a random page here. So this is during our Trickster Tales unit, and I will show you guys all the different books we're going to be using this year when I'm done with this. But as you can see, it's laid out very similarly to the first grade if you've used our first grade in the past or if you've looked at any of our samples. We have a literature selection, so we tell you what to read to your child that week. And for the second grade year, you are still reading most of these selections out loud to your child unless you don't want to. If your child's a little more advanced, that's a good way to challenge them by having them read the book selections themselves. But it was designed for the parent to be reading them for most second graders. So just keep that in mind when I'm showing you the books later on, that these are meant to be read-alouds done by the parents. So it tells you, for this particular unit, we do have a minimalist and expansion option. It's not like that for every unit, but there were a lot of really good Trickster Tales in our book that we chose. So you can choose to just stick to the one or two stories we recommend or read all of them from that part of the world. Okay, so the next thing is we also include a literature project each week. And sometimes this is creating peg dolls or clay or Lego figures or something that represents the story. Sometimes it's acting the story out with puppets or acting it out yourselves. Sometimes it's a related project, making a poster or something like that. But it's always something that explores the story. Then we have a creative extensions project, and I will show you that guide separately. So I'll get back to that. And then we also include a geography prompt for most weeks. And for this particular unit, it's mapping the story. You're looking at the geography of Europe that week because all the stories, the Trickster Tales we read that week are from Europe. So you'll find Europe on a map, and you can choose to make a recipe, listen to music, etc. You can go as deep as you want. In the student notebook, you have, and I'll show you that notebook next, but you'll have a journal prompt for your child to complete. For the second grade year, you probably would want to be writing your child's journal prompts for them if they're still not confidently writing themselves. If they're starting to develop that confidence and you're wanting to encourage more independent writing, they can write it first, or you can write it down so they can copy it into their journal. It's up to you at this point which one works better for your family. My daughter is starting to bridge into doing her own writing, so we'll probably do a combination of both, where she's dictating her response to me and I'm writing it down for her, or she tells me what she wants to write and I can write a clean copy of it on a separate piece of paper for her to copy from, or she can just do phonetic spelling and do her very best at doing that. So I think we'll probably just do a combination. Now for narration, same deal. Your child will narrate the reading that you did that week. When you have multiple stories, they can just choose to narrate one of them. And then there's always a weekly copywork selection. This year we do integrate a little bit of grammar into that, and that's totally optional. If you're holding off and just doing grammar later in elementary school, that's totally fine. You can just use it as copywork only or skip it altogether. And then you have the reading selection at the top of the page, and this is the reading lesson for the week. We typically divide ours between 2 and 3 sessions over the course of the week. If your child's flying through them, it might only take 1, and you can always extend it over multiple weeks if you need to. So in this curriculum, we have a concept we cover every week, and we do have review weeks in between the concepts so that your child has a chance to review what they've already learned. So in this particular week, we're working on syllable division between different consonants, like in the word winter, or problem, or wonder. So it gives you kind of a brief description of how to teach that concept, and then in the student notebook, you'll have a bunch of words that you can use as well. So I will show you that next. Once your student is reading through the lesson fairly easily, you can skip ahead and do have them just review the word list, reading it to you out loud. That's in their student notebook. And then we have adventure poems. And I will show you what that looks like in the student notebook, but it's very similar to the cut and paste poetry from grade 1, just a little more difficult. And then we also recommend additional reading of 10 to 20 minutes a day independently from an early reader or a book at their level. So it's a really flexible curriculum. You don't have to do all the things every single week that are written down here. If you're going for a minimalist approach, you can certainly skip the things that you don't feel like you need to cover. Or if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum and you want to dive really deep and follow all those rabbit trails, we highly encourage that. So we, during the first grade year, we had some stories we skipped through pretty quickly or went through as fast as we could. And we had a lot of stories that we took our time with. So we had, I think Thumbelina was one of the stories we spent almost a month on. It just depends on the pace that you want to adopt in your homeschool, what's clicking with your child and what's not, and what works for you. So it's a very flexible curriculum. And I just wanted to show you another example of the geography project so you could kind of see every book that you read, or every section, like we have the Trickster Tales and we also have Tall Tales, but every book or section that you read has its own geography project that integrates with it. So for example, in The Wizard of Oz, you'll be completing a project on the geography of home. And during the course of while you're reading The Wizard of Oz, your child will work on this geography project where they're putting together, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can do a video or a poster or a book or a presentation, anything that your child wants to do to make the project come alive. You're going to be studying the geography of your hometown or your home city. So we cover a lot of different geography concepts within that project, split up over multiple weeks. So that's just an example. And we do have a lot of hands-on projects. We make a lot of moving pictures, like moving watercolor pictures in this particular year. Let's see if I can find an example. And you make a map for The Hobbit and for The Wind in the Willows. So this is an example of the moving picture projects for one of our Tall Tales. So your child can move the stick back and forth and make the picture move. So that's the parent guide for our language arts. And I want to show you the student guide next, or the student notebook next, so you can see how they work together. So this is the student notebook. It's fairly hefty. I do recommend with the student notebook that you print it single-sided instead of double-sided. All the parent guides can be printed double-sided with no problems. I prefer single-sided because I like to take notes on the back, but for the student notebooks I do recommend, especially with the language arts one, to print single-sided. So I'm going to show you inside the student notebook so you can kind of see how it integrates. Let's just go ahead and hop open to week 1. So as you can see, here's that literature journal prompt that we talked about with the parent guide. And this one is for a tall tale that you read together during our very first unit. And it says, "What would the world look like if you were as large as Paul Bunyan? Would you enjoy towering over the trees? What kind of giant pet would you like to have, and what color would it be?" And in this student notebook, we did the lines a little differently so that your child can use them to write their own answers if they want to, just like I just discussed. If your child's not ready for that, go ahead and keep transcribing for them. But if they are ready, the lines are there to help them with that printing. And then here's the narration page. So your child would make a picture of Paul Bunyan, the story of Paul Bunyan, and then they could either narrate the whole tale to you or just their favorite part of the story. Now, if your child doesn't like to color or draw very much, there are other options. Your child can always do their narration orally instead, and you can just write their words down for them. And they can also use Legos or favorite toys to act out the story. There's a lot of different options. You definitely don't just have to have them make a picture. This is meant to be a flexible curriculum that works for you and not the other way around. So there's that. And then for the reading lesson, you'll have a list of words. Now this is a review week. We kick off the year just reviewing things we covered in the first grade. And as your child works through the word list, you can always just mark words that they're having a hard time with or a concept they're not quite getting. And you can start each session the following week by reviewing those particular words. So that's the easiest way to do it, is just to kind of mark any words they're having a hard time with, and then you can go back and review them. So that's a review week. Let me show you maybe one that's not a review week, so you can see what that looks like. So this is a typical lesson. This is when you're working through hard C and soft C. So I just give very brief points. Keep it simple when you're teaching young children how to read. We just talk about the general rules, and maybe sometimes if there's very common exception to the rule, we talk about it as well. And then we list words where they can practice the concept they just learned. And then on the bottom of this one, we have some exceptions for them to go over as well. So again, this is very flexible. You definitely don't just have to work off the book. If your child is very hands-on, you can use letter tiles and letter magnets and other manipulatives to help them make the words with those as they're learning them. And that's going to help the hands-on kids get that concept down. And you can also use dry erase boards or dry erase markers on the window, is something my daughter really likes to do to cover these concepts. You don't have to just work out of the book. So that's what that looks like. And then we have the adventure poems. So the adventure poems are very similar to the poetry, the cut and paste poetry we used in the first grade curriculum. Those were all really short, just kind of exploring those fundamental words for the first grade. And these are all poetry, actual poetry snippets from, there's a lot from Robert Louis Stevenson and many other poets in the second half of the year. So again, you'll have the poem with some blanks to fill in. So you will probably need to help your child through most of these poems. If they're a strong reader, they can definitely get through them at this level. If they're struggling a bit, just help read through the poem with them, because it's a really good way for them not only to practice their reading skills, but also to practice grammar concepts, whether or not they know they're doing it, by placing a noun where a noun would go and a verb where a verb would go, just by reading the poem and kind of playing detective to figure out where those words go. So it's a simple activity that incorporates a lot of learning. So that is what the mini poems look like. And then we have copy work. But at the beginning of our copy work in second grade, we do have a grammar prompt where we talk about different grammar concepts like nouns and verbs and complete sentences and commas and things like that. So if you are incorporating the grammar, you would first read that prompt to your child. It usually has them do something to the passage before they copy it down. And then they end by copying in their very best printing the passage in the copywork selection, and then you would review it. So that's what the notebook looks like. And my daughter's first grade notebook is such a treasure. I absolutely love flipping through it and seeing all her old drawings and her thoughts and the stories that resonated with her. So that's one of the best things I think about having that notebook, is just to have that record of all the beautiful books that you read together and their thoughts about those books. So there is a third piece this year to our language arts curriculum, and that is the Creative Extensions Guide. So we did not have this in the first grade year. I wanted to keep things very simple for the first grade year so that we don't get overwhelmed, but I am going to be incorporating one for the remaining elementary years. So what the Creative Extensions Guide is it's a guide to projects that align or correlate with each one of the units in language arts. So we have a project that goes with Tall Tales, we have a project that goes with Trickster Tales, we have projects that go with Wizard of Oz and The Wind in the Willows and all the other stories that we read. So I'm going to open it up and show you an example so you can kind of see what you get in here. So we'll start with the very first one. So the first project corresponds with our unit on Tall Tales, and I always state which weeks they go with and show an example. So you have complete freedom when you're deciding how to schedule this. You can work on it a little bit each week. You can just work on it once at the very end of the unit if you want to and kind of do it all in one fell swoop. Or you can skip it or skip the ones you're not interested in and spend more time on the ones that you are interested in. And then another option is that if your child really falls in love with one of these projects and they want to continue to do that project for the other books you read, definitely just go with it and let them do their thing. So for example, if your child really loves doing the window clings, and they want to do window cling scenery of the other books they read instead of the projects that we scheduled, that's totally fine. The point of the creative extensions is to inspire your child and to empower them with new artistic skill sets that they might not have had prior, and to give them a place to just play with the ideas that are going through their mind as they're reading these wonderful, rich literature selections. So, let's get started here. I always show you exactly what you need and list it out. And most of the time, these are things you can find around your home already. Some of the projects in here do require specific supplies that you probably don't already have, but they're easy to find either online or at craft stores. So for this one, it's just magazines, glue, scissors, and paper. And I kind of always give you a heads up before you begin, anything that might trip you up during the project, and safety things to be aware of. And then I just have photos walking you through step by step how to put each project together. And they're really kid-friendly. Some of them, they might need your help a little bit to get started, and others, like this one, they can definitely just do completely on their own. So this one's just kind of in the theme of the Tall Tales. They're taking photographs of themselves and cutting them out and putting them on top of magazine pictures to make whimsical scenes or funny scenes. I really like this one. So I just took a picture of my daughters and glued it on the back of a whale shark and put it in outer space, just to kind of give you an idea of the different ways you can go. There is no right or wrong way to do any of these projects. Again, they are just meant to inspire. So that's the Creative Extensions Guide. Totally optional, but it's a really fun way for your child to play with the ideas in the story. So I know Blake's really going to be excited about this when we get started in second grade. She was really excited watching me put the examples together to photograph for the guide, so I'm really looking forward to doing this with her next year. Okay, I'm going to show you all of the literature selections that go with the Blossom and Root Grade 2 Language Arts curriculum. So we start out with the Tall Tales unit, and I do state in the guide, I tell you which Tall Tales we're going to cover, and you can use any volume of Tall Tales you want. So if you already have a favorite book of Tall Tales at home, or if you're just going to use books from the library, these are all really easy to find. You could just use Mary Pope Osborne's American Tall Tales, and you'll just need to get Thunder Rose to go with it. I also really love this version of John Henry, although this book does include one already. But again, you should be able to get those at the library very easily. The Stephen Kellogg ones are really good too. So that's the first unit. And then we wrap up the Tall Tales unit with a really short book that is fantastic called Fortunately the Milk, and it just captures that Tall Tale spirit. This is a really quick read. You can probably get through it in a week, but you are welcome to extend it longer if you want to. So that's the full Tall Tales unit right there. And the next unit we cover is Trickster Tales. So I found this great book on Amazon. It's the only place I was able to find it. But it's Trickster Tales, 40 folk stories from around the world. And we go continent by continent as we're exploring these. I've chosen 2 Trickster Tales to go with each week, but I also encourage you to read the rest of the tales from that continent if you're interested in them. And most of these can be Googled online. If you don't want to buy this book, you can find common Trickster Tales online very easily. But I really do recommend this book. It was very inexpensive. It just has so many fabulous stories from all over the world. And you really start to see that common theme running through all these different cultures when you read through them. So, fantastic book. I'm really looking forward to reading that with Blake. And I know Bryce will be listening in for most of them too. And the next book we read is The Wind in the Willows, which is a classic. It's hilarious, it's whimsical, it's got so much heart. It's a great, great book, and I am really, really excited to read it with Blake and Bryce and see what happens in their imaginations as we read through it. All right, the next book is The Wizard of Oz, which is very different from the movie. It's a wonderful story. It's a quick story. It reads really fast, and just a great classic children's book. So another one I'm looking forward to. And then we have The Hobbit. And I am so excited to read The Hobbit again. I read that when I was little, or had it read to me, I should say. But I picked out this particular volume because I wanted some illustrations. It doesn't have tons, but they are really beautiful. And I got this one I think I got this one at Barnes & Noble. But I think they do have it on Amazon, or at least on the Barnes & Noble website. But it's absolutely beautiful, a great story. I know they're gonna love that. And the way I kind of scheduled the year, even though Blossom and Root's really flexible and you could start anytime you want, if you do start with a traditional school schedule, starting in August, you will end up reading that in the middle of the winter, which to me seems like the perfect winter story. And then we have The Tale of Despero, which is a nice, quick read. It's a more modern story than the other selections, and it's wonderful, great themes running through it. We love her. We've read a lot of her books, a lot of heart in that one as well. And then we end the year with Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, which is a fabulous book. I absolutely love the story within a story format of it, and the characters, and the richness of the imagery. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book, and I know it's going to be one of Blake's favorites. So that's the literature for Blossom and Root. Now, in addition to Blossom and Root, we do have a couple of other things we're going to be using as supplements. So we've been working through Brave Writer's Jot It Down program, oh my goodness, since Blake was, I think, 4, and she will be 8 this fall. And every year we just kind of do a couple of the projects out of it and keep our schedule really loose. This year she only did one. She chose to make a mini book about horses, and she's just starting to finish it up. We spent a lot of the year delving into that interest of hers. She did a lot of research, lots of books at the library, lots of documentaries, and she took horsemanship classes and riding classes, and she'll be ending up at horse camp for a week to kind of wrap up her experience. And then I'm going to send the book she's worked so hard on to be printed out at Shutterfly. So that's the only project we did this year from Jot It Down. I kind of feel like that's what I'm going to do for next year. I'm going to let her pick one project and kind of take it wherever it goes. So this is a fabulous resource. We've gotten so much use out of it. I absolutely love Jot It Down and Brave Writer in general. So there's that. And then the Brave Learner, I'm going to be using a lot of the things I'm learning as I'm reading through this again and again in our homeschool this year. So I'm trying to take a lot of the fabulous wisdom from this book and apply it into our homeschool in a way that really works for the way we like to homeschool. So I will do a separate review on the Brave Learner soon. I'm still processing everything that's in it. It has so much inside this book. I can't wait to share that with you if you haven't already read the Brave Learner. And then another resource we're going to use as a supplement is the Waldock's Wizards and Wands. So I think the way I'm going to use this is for this year I'm just going to be using mostly the literature prompts that she has in here, which I think she calls incantations, that particular section. But they're these fantastic prompts. Let me see if I can open up two of them. Here's one Blake already did. She couldn't wait to get started. So I was working with her little sister on kindergarten stuff, and I wanted her to kind of get her brain going and get started, and she was very eager to break into this book as soon as I brought it home. So I just pulled it out and let her do this particular activity. But she got to invent her own wand and design it, and she told me what she wanted me to write down for her. Sometimes she writes her own, and sometimes I write it for her. And then there's just all these other great prompts in here for her to do. Okay, that's breaking into something different. So the curriculum itself has a lot of different things that you can do, but we're going to be sticking, I think, with the incantations for this year. I also have a Harry Potter cursive book that I got off Amazon that she'll just lightly be going through as well. I'm not going to be really working hard on cursive with her until 3rd grade, but she's really interested in writing cursive, so she's already started exploring it. So those are the other language arts supplements. And to wrap up language arts, I just wanted to show you, we'll be using a lot of games and readers, and I'll show those all to you in a separate video for like our 2nd grade haul. But I did find these awesome readers on Amazon that I thought were just about right for her level going into 2nd grade. And we have a lot of Frog and Toad and Little Bear and Owl at Home and the Billy and Blaze series. We have the whole Billy and Blaze series, which she's still working through right now. But I was excited about these because I think they're right up Blake's alley and she's really going to enjoy them. They were a little expensive, but honestly, I really feel like they're worth it. The quality of the story and the word selections. So that, my friends, is language arts. All right, let's talk about math. So this past year, we started out using Singapore as our spine, and we used wild math to supplement. This year, I'm going to flip that around, and we're going to be using wild math as our spine and Singapore to supplement. So, and a couple of other things. So wild math, if you're following us at all, is one of our favorite things that we've added to our homeschool, just because it totally goes with the way we like to work. We really like to do homeschool outside as much as possible, and this particular math curriculum makes that totally doable. So I can actually, and often do, schedule our entire math lesson for the day to be done outdoors while we're out and about doing outside play. So that's basically what we're going to be using it for. Every couple of weeks I'll pick a new theme that I want us to work through, or concept I want us to work through. I'll flag the activities I want us to come back to over and over again, and we'll take them outside. So that's wild math. And this is a mixed curriculum for grades 2 and 3 together, so that's awesome. Because if Blake starts to move a little bit further ahead, I'll be able to keep her challenged. So that's what that looks like. And then I will still be using Singapore to help guide me. I really like the way Singapore teaches math. I just don't like all the tedious bookwork when we'd rather be outdoors learning with our hands and getting hands-on with what we're doing. So I still want to be able to teach her the concepts in the Singapore style as much as I can. So all I bought for second grade was the home instructor's guide, rather than the textbook and the workbook and the test book. This was the only piece I purchased, and what my plan is, and I'll make a different video to show you exactly how I plan to do this, but I will choose the concept I want to work through in wild math and the activities that will kind of help ground it. And then I'll come over to my Singapore instructor's guide and read through it and kind of work on some other techniques to teach it to her so we can get that practice in and make sure it still aligns with the Singapore style of teaching. This is totally experimental, you guys, so I will definitely share my journey with you throughout the year, showing you how I'm doing that, how I'm making it happen, and how I'm putting it all together so you can see, because we're still trying to find the best click for us with math. It's definitely not doing Singapore by itself. And I'm hoping that my plan with using wild math more as a spine will definitely pan out this year. And then there are 2 more math supplements I wanted to show you guys really quickly. I got the book Math in the Garden off of Gardener's Supply Company online. Don't look on Amazon because for whatever reason it's like hundreds of dollars on Amazon. I don't know why. But go to Gardener's Supply Company and order it from them if you're interested in it, because it's only like $25. So it's just a fabulous resource. I actually have a full video on our Instagram TV channel flipping through this and explaining the difference between this and wild math. So you guys can see that if you want to. Just go to our Instagram TV channel at Blossom and Root. So we're just going to pepper that in from time to time, maybe once every month or 2. And then I also got, just recently, Beast Academy to use as a supplement because my friend had it. I was flipping through it at her house and I was like, oh my gosh, Blake would love this. This is awesome. So I really love being able to put math into like a story context and have more concrete examples of these abstract concepts. So I think this is a great fit for her. I only got 2A for now because I just want to see how it works out for her and if she likes it. And if she does, I'll go ahead and order the other 3 volumes for the year. But I just feel like it's a really great supplement for what we're doing so that she has this kind of fun way to explore it in book format. So I just recently purchased that. I haven't had much chance to flip through, but I'm really excited to see if she likes it. So there's that as well. And then the very last thing, just like with language arts, is that we like to incorporate a lot of game schooling and a lot of related books. So I will show those to you in a separate haul. I just brought out one of the books for this video. We love the Circumference series, and there's a lot of other really great math picture books. So I've been looking for them on thrift books for the last few months and ordering them when I see a good price. But that's what I'm talking about. So if we're working on place value, I'd whip this out. during that time and read it to her as well. Again, she really likes things in story format, so I think that's a really good fit for her. And I'll do another video where I show you all the goodies I have collected. So that is math. All right, guys, time for my very favorite subject, which is science and nature study. This year, we're going to be studying all things plants with Blossom and Root, the year 2 science, which is Wonders of the Plant and Fungi Kingdoms. And just a quick word, if you're using Blossom and Root or if you're thinking about using Blossom and Root, these guides can be used at any time during the elementary years. So if you have kids with multiple ages and you want to combine science with them, you can absolutely do these with kids that aren't in 2nd grade. They're very flexible, very adaptable. So you can mix and match them however you want. You can do the units in any order inside. It's very flexible. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure curriculum for science and nature study. But we're probably going to be following this one pretty much verbatim. I might rearrange which things we're studying at which time, just depending on the time of the year. But I'm going to get us a Botanic Gardens membership for the year, and we're going to use that to do lots of field trips in addition to hikes and wild spaces to explore the plant and fungi kingdoms. So let me show you inside the parent guide. We have a lot of pages leading up because we love books, and we know a lot of other families love to do a lot of books. So I have extensive book lists for recommended supplementary books. We have just a few spines, and they're actually optional. And if you're not a book-loving family, you can skip all these. You do not have to get them from the library or the store or anything. But if you are a book-loving family, they are there for you. And I spend a lot of time curating those lists. So I'm pretty excited about it. So in the parent guide, it's laid out very simply, and again, it's with a choose-your-own-adventure spirit in mind. So we always start out with some kind of introduction to the concept we're teaching that wonder. I don't use the term weeks because sometimes you're going to want to live in one spot for a few weeks, and sometimes you'll be like doing this in one day and move on. It totally depends on your interest, your child's interest, what's going on in your life at the time, and even the season sometimes. So I don't name them weeks on purpose in the science curriculum because I want you to have that freedom. So in this particular wonder, we're learning all about how plants make life possible on Earth. And then I always give big picture messages to focus on. So I try to keep these they're usually between 3 and 8 messages for the week. Just simple concepts for you to make sure your child kind of has that down and everything else is gravy or icing or whatever you want to say. And then you get to move over to the side for the how. So this is what you're going to be teaching, and this is how. I always have a minimalist option because we all have those weeks where we just kind of want to make sure we can check the box and move on. So if that's the kind of week you're having, you'll stick with the minimalist option. And then I always have recommendations for the book basket folks. That was that long list I showed you just a second ago. So any books that I recommend you supplement, if you're into book baskets and lots of reading, there's the books that you'll find in that list right here. If your child is more into video, or if you want to also incorporate video, I include links to different videos on YouTube. Sometimes they're not on YouTube, but they usually are, that you can watch to bring that concept to life. So that's what that's all about. And then there are 3 different ways to explore the concept, and you can mix and match these too. So if you're really enjoying the concept, you can do all of them. If you kind of just want to skirt by, you don't have to do any of them. It's totally up to you. So I know you hear me say that a lot, but it's true. It's a very flexible and adaptable curriculum. So these are your choices, and they're all going to have instructions in the lab guide, which I will show you. But for example, if you like to do your lessons outside, I always include an option for outdoor learners. And for this year's curriculum, a lot of that is hikes and scavenger hunts. So you can go and look for these parts of the plants that we're studying that week. And then there's always an option for table lab crowds. These are people who like to do their science at the kitchen table rather than during field trips or outings or anything like that. So I like to include those. A lot of times those are like tasty food projects or fun science experiments using household items that you probably already have at home. And then we also include a craft and project option. So those are for kids who really like to do projects when they're learning something. These can be things like posters or models or other kind of crafts that help bring that concept to life. And again, you can mix and match those however you want. And then the very last thing is to record what you've learned in the student notebook. We do provide a student notebook, which I will show you in a minute, but you don't have to use it. Blake really likes those big main lesson books, so we've started about halfway through the year. We switched from using the notebook to using the main lesson book so she had more room to color, since she likes to make really big pictures. So that is the parent guide. And it's so much fun, and you can just make it your own thing and go as deep as you want. And I also always recommend, and I say so throughout the whole curriculum, that if you guys find yourself curious about a rabbit trail that comes up while you're learning, go off and follow that curiosity. The curriculum will always be waiting for you when you come back. So don't feel like you have to stay tied to it. You absolutely don't, and you can go in any order you want. This is the lab guide. So this goes with the parent guide with those activities I showed you for the outdoor learners, the table lab crowd, and the craft and project family options. And when you open this up, you'll find specific instructions for each option. So, for example, the wonder for gymnosperms, when you're learning about those. If you want to do the scavenger hunt, here's the instructions for that. If you want to do the seeds versus spores demonstration at home at the kitchen table, there's the instructions for that. And then we also include the scavenger hunt. This is a full color PDF, but I recommend printing this in black and white, and we actually include a separate PDF, which is all of the scavenger hunts put together. So you can send that to the printers and have them print those in color if you want to. But for the lab guide itself, it probably makes more sense just to print it all in black and white. And I'll show you what those look like printed in color. And then finally, you have the craft and projects families option. So for this particular week, you would build a felt model of a ginkgo bough. So it gives you instructions for that too. And also why it helps to make demos of things or models of things. So the lab guide's got detailed instructions including what you need and what to do for every single project in the parent guide. So there's that, and then I'm going to show you the scavenger hunts separately. So again, they are integrated throughout the lab guide, so they're easy to find and make sure you're using the correct one. But we also include a separate download, which is all the same files for the scavenger hunts only. And that way you can easily send just those to the printer to get printed in color. So we printed ours in color on medium grade paper, and that was plenty. So I'll probably just slip these into a sheet protector and put it on our clipboards when we're getting ready to go outside to do our scavenger hunts. But as you can see, there's full color examples of all the different concepts we teach in the curriculum. Leaves and roots and stems and needles and gymnosperms, that's a tricky one, and conifers and bark, different kinds of bark, and evergreen versus deciduous trees, and flowers, and pollinators. And so as you can see, there's lots of scavenger hunts. If your child likes to do scavenger hunts, they're going to like this curriculum. If your child does not, well, hey, there's other options in the lab guide for them to explore the concept at hand. So that's the scavenger hunt files, and those are really fun. And then the last part of our science curriculum is, of course, the notebook. And again, if your child needs more space, they can use a sketchbook instead, they can use a main lesson book, but we do provide this so that they can record their learning. And all it is a simple notebook where they get to choose what they want to write down for what they learned that week. And again, either you can write their words for them, or they can write their own words phonetically, or you can they can tell you what they want to write and you can copy it down, and then they can copy it into their notebook themselves. And again, if your child does not like to draw or color, a great way to do the science notebook is to have them take pictures with your phone or your digital camera while they're out and about or while they're doing their table lab. And they can just take pictures of what they did and paste them in. That's a really good option for kids that don't necessarily like to draw and color. And it's fun to do that anyway. So even if they do want to make a picture of conifers, they might want to include some photographs of when they went on their scavenger hunt or their favorite conifer trees in their neighborhood. So this is like a learning album where they record what they learned and what they took away from it. So no tests, no worksheets, no workbooks. It's a very hands-on science curriculum, focusing in the elementary years on exploring their world. So I wanted to quickly show you a couple of the spines that go with science. We have a lot of books that I've collected to read while we study all this, but I'm just showing you the basic spines. So the book Botanicum is one of them. These books are absolutely gorgeous. They have such fantastic pictures. I love them. So that's one of the optional spines that you can use for the program. Again, you don't even have to use any of the spines if you don't want to. You can just use the big picture messages we give you in the parent guide or the video links only. And another one of the spines is the DK Eyewitness book Plant. This is just really helpful for when you're studying different parts of the plant because it has them split apart. So it makes it really easy for your child to explore those things individually. And then we have the Tree book for kids and their grown-ups, which is another fantastic book that you would use a lot if you chose to use it throughout the whole year. And this one we actually only use once, but I wanted to show you anyway. So we just used this with the very first wonder, and it's called Living Sunlight: How Plants Bring the Earth to Life. And I think it's a really good book for explaining to children how important plants are to life on Earth. So I really recommend you get this at least from the library for that first wonder unit. And then I also grabbed these botanical postcards, and I'm not really sure how we're going to use them yet, but they're just gorgeous. And I'm going to come up with some ideas, and I'll definitely share them on our blog with how you could use these while you're working your way through that particular curriculum. And they were really not very expensive. I think they were $15, and there's 100 of them, and they're all different. So they're gorgeous. All right, so that is science. Now I'm going to show you guys nature study, which corresponds with our science. So we're going to be using Blossom and Root, again, year 2. And our nature study does correlate directly with the science curriculum, although it is not on a week-by-week basis. So you don't have to do week 1 in nature study at the same time as Wonder 1 in science. In fact, we don't even number them. They're just projects that you can flip through and find the one you want to do that week. And they're all related to plants and fungi. So there's all these different projects that you get to make with your child, and you can pick them based on the season that's going on where you live right now. You can pick them based on the interest of your child. You can skip ones that aren't interesting to them, and you can repeat the ones that they love to do. So it's a very flexible curriculum, just lots of different ideas. So we also include several larger projects that all the other prompts are pretty quick, like you would do them over a pretty short period of time. But we do include these bigger projects that they work on throughout the whole year. So a botanical calendar, a tree book, seasonal wreaths for each season, and an herbal remedies book. So I just wanted to show you that it has those 2 different components, and it's a really fun and flexible curriculum. It's very similar to the grade 1 nature study, although I will say that this one is far more heavily integrated with the theme in the science curriculum than the first grade 1 was. And that also comes with its own notebook that your child can use for their nature notebook if they don't already have one that they love. So you can just keep track. They can make a picture of when they made the leaf garland or wax dipped leaves. They can just paste a picture in of them doing it, or the finished product, or they can draw a picture and take notes. Now if you have a nature notebook that you already love using, you can definitely use that instead. All right, let me try and wrap this up. This is a very long video. Okay, art. So our main curriculum for 2nd grade is also going to be Blossom and Root, and it's Exploring the Math and Art Volume 2. So if you did 1st grade or if you've looked at our samples, our art curriculum for the elementary years is inspired by math concepts, but it also includes lots of fun projects and picture studies. So I'm just going to show you an example because I feel like that's the easiest way to explain it. So the very first thing we study in the second grade one is lines, our lines. So we study the zigzag lines, for example. And I always have a little blip about the math concept of the week. And then I include 1, 2, and sometimes 3 different works of art that you can Google and look at with your child to look at that example in a real art context. And guided discussions on picture study for that, and guided discussions on the math concept and how it integrates into the art. And then the fun part is the project. So there's always an activity to help your child just play and bring that to life. These are not, sometimes we have you replicate a work of art, but they're really not, that's not the point. Most of these are very open-ended, and they're meant to be explored, process-based art projects rather than product-based art projects. And I always give you the supply list as well. So let me show you another example. That's a fun one. Repetition. So the week that we talk about repetition, I talk about how it relates to math. I give you the work of art to study. So you would start by doing a picture study. You'd Google that and talk about it with your child. You'd talk about the math concept within it. And then you do this really fun open-ended, process-based art project with your child. And I try to make it really easy to gather these supplies because I really don't like having to go to the craft store a lot. So those supplies should be things you pretty much always have on hand already. Maybe occasionally you'll have to make a run, but I try to keep it as simple as possible because we are all very busy. So that is the art curriculum we'll be using. She'll also be doing Blossom and Root Kindergarten's art curriculum with her sister, which is more traditional. We study 4 different artists for 9 weeks at a time, 1 work of their art per week with a related art project. So that's art. For music, just like with my kindergartner, we're going to be using Legends of the Staff of Musique. We're going to be using their primer program, which is the Foundations of Music. And I am super excited about this curriculum. It's absolutely beautiful. It's Waldorf inspired. So all that wonderful hands-on, gentle learning. And it's just, I can't even say enough about how much I love this curriculum, and I'm really excited to get into it so that I can share with you guys how we used it, how it worked for us, and hopefully inspire you to try it out too. Another homeschooling mom wrote that curriculum, and she put so much love and heart into it, and that's our main music curriculum for this year. We're also going to be using Squilt, Meet the Instruments. I took my daughters to see Harry Potter at the Symphony last year, and they absolutely fell in love, and they wanted to know the names of all the instruments, so I thought this was a really good time to whip that program out, and they can learn all the different instruments. And we do love Squilt so much. And then really quickly, for history, I can't really show you what I'm doing yet because I'm still writing it, but it will be done by August. I'm going to be writing, I'm in the middle of writing, history for early American history from 1600 to 1791. And I will go into great detail with another video once that is ready. But that's what we're going to spend the first half of the year on. And then the second half of the year, we're going to cover ancient Greece and ancient Rome, which we meant to cover this year, but we took our time with Egypt, so we ended up just pushing it to next year. And then towards springtime and next summer, we're going to study the Middle Ages. And all of those are programs that I am writing myself this year. I tried just using what's already out there, and I was just not satisfied at all, so I just put my foot down and said I'm going to do it myself. So I will share all that with you once those curriculum programs are finished, which will be end of summer, if not earlier. So that's what we're doing for history. For geography and culture, we're doing a program really similar to what we did last year, where we just studied Africa for the whole entire year, because I really like to take our time learning about other cultures and places. And this year we're going to be doing Asia. So basically I gather up a ton of books and I read them at night, and we learn a new country every couple days on the map. And every now and again we'll do a fun activity where we cook something or watch a movie or listen to music. And we try to go to cultural festivals in our area as well. So I will share all that with you as that develops, and I will definitely share my book choices with you once I have them all picked out for the year in a different video. If you want to kind of see how I do that, I do have a video on how we approach geography and culture using that method, and you can see that. I'll link that video below for you. I will also link below a blog post where you can read all of this in detail, and it will have all the links to everything we're using. So if you really liked some of the stuff I shared with you and you want to check it out for yourself, you can go to that blog post to find the link. And then I guess the last thing I'll talk about really quickly is other enrichment. So Blake will still be doing, she goes to a homeschool enrichment program once a week, and so she'll continue doing that next year. She really loved doing it this year. It was fantastic, and it gave her an opportunity to be around lots of other kids who are homeschoolers and do fun things like theater and cooking class and stuff that maybe isn't as fun to just do at home with mom. So that's the main thing she'll be doing for her extracurricular. We go swimming at least once a week. We do yoga almost every day, and I hope to keep putting her in horseback riding lessons at least once or twice a month because she really has fallen in love with that, and it's really helped her develop confidence. So that's my plan for that, and we'll also be using Rooted Childhood. I go into detail about what that is in my kindergarten video toward the end of the video, but Rooted Childhood is just these great guides. They're absolutely beautiful. We used a few months of them this year and absolutely loved the projects we did. I don't try to make it like a weekly thing or even a monthly thing. I just fit them in where I feel like we need a break from the regular programming, or during school breaks, or when we're having kind of a lull, or if it's like a really inspiring time of year like fall always is for us. So I'll whip that out and we'll do projects from that when we are inspired to do so. I think I've covered everything. I'm really excited for the year ahead. Second grade's probably the most excited I've been so far about starting a year with my child. And I really hope that this video was helpful to you guys, that maybe you got some ideas or inspiration. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, Christina@blossomandroot.com, and I will be happy to answer them for you. And if you are interested in any of the Blossom and Root curriculum you saw in this video, we have scope and sequence and full samples available online. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Please feel free to share what you're going to be using in the comments, and have a wonderful summer and a great homeschool year next year. Bye for now.